Now that we have our list of potential KPIs identified, our next very important step is to apply filters to identify what would truly make these KPIs key. In order to make it to the final set of KPIs, we need to consider the following. First of all, it needs to have a very significant impact naturally. To be more specific, it should affect one or more critical success factors. It has to affect at least one by definition, but it should affect more than one. But certainly, if it affected more than one balanced scorecard perspective, that too would help ensure that it was truly a key performance indicator. It needs to be measured frequently. We are used to metrics that tend to be measured more on a monthly or a quarterly basis, and that relates more to the key result indicators. If something is a key performance indicator, it needs to pass through the filter that measuring it frequently makes sense. I mean, by frequently, 24/7 would be good, but daily or weekly, it's something that the enterprise needs to be very focused on, and being measured frequently and making sense to be measured frequently would be another filter through which it should pass. The KPI needs to be easily understood by company personnel. Perhaps that speaks for itself, but to the extent that a KPI is complex, it will certainly fail. If the users don't understand the meaning of it, they certainly can't influence its outcome. Under the heading of easily understood, drillable is also critical for understanding as well. And certainly the Oracle Business Intelligence products can add to the drillable nature of the KPI, and by that I mean when the outcome is not moving in the direction that you'd hope it to move, you need to be able to drill down deeper and to determine some of the core reasons why it's not moving in the direction that you want it to move, or perhaps some of the things you can do to make it move in that direction. The responsibility of the KPI needs to be tied to a team as well. I'm a big advocate of there being one champion for each KPI. And that champion could be an individual, but it can also be a team. And often that's more effective to make sure that there's a group of people looking after each one of these performance indicators that you're trying to determine whether it's key. There's an often used acronym, and I'll use it again here because it is very relevant, of SMART. The KPI needs to pass through this as well. This is true for more than just KPIs, but certainly it needs to pass through this filter. The metric needs to be specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. And finally, in order to pass through the filter, it should require the action of the senior management team. That would be a very strong indication that the performance indicator is truly key. So now that we've gone through the approach for the identification of key performance indicators, let me provide some more insight on some of the things to avoid, perhaps, some of the challenges of the process. Key performance indicators can come in many different shapes and forms, and there's a spectrum of enterprises that range from simple to complex. Complex enterprises are going to create a great challenge, and mainly in the modeling steps of the approach. It's certainly more difficult to model a more complex business, but there again, if you start at the highest levels and keep identifying elements until you identify elements that aren't truly driving the strategic objectives, you've got a pretty complete modeling exercise. But it's certainly a complex enterprise will add to the challenge of the modeling. Many times we get to the end of a KPI selection methodology, and there's still too many KPIs. Now, what may be an opportunity in that circumstance is that they may be cascaded down to lower levels of the enterprise. That's perfectly acceptable. What you may end up with in the end are the truly key ones at the highest level of the enterprise, and this may be an improvement because you may be handing down key performance indicators that are more appropriately measured and promoted at a divisional, department, or team level. Another challenge of the process is that you may end up with inappropriate targets or thresholds. There may be circumstances where the KPIs that you could select may conflict with another area of the business that you hadn't thought about. For example, if there was a key performance indicator to streamline inventory costs, however, that didn't take into consideration another aspect of the business, which would be trying to avoid retail stockouts, certainly now you have an inappropriate target. Now that's going to be identified as these things get implemented, and it'll be identified as it's periodically reviewed. But another challenge of the process is the tendency to identify those items that are easily measured. The easily measured are the ones that usually get identified in a brainstorming approach versus the modeling approach. Since the modeling approach should truly identify the critical success factors, hopefully then, even if something's hard to measure, it'll still be part of the final KPI list. Once again, I think the brainstorming process tends to pull out those things that are much more easily measured. But to address some of these challenges, there should be at least a quarterly and an annual review. This is a self-cleansing process, and through quarterly and annual reviews, I'd say for quarterly, it should be a revised process whereby you'd ask yourself whether the KPIs are working as intended and make adjustments accordingly. The annual process should be kind of a recast whereby as the business evolves, we should ask ourselves whether the list is still sound. And in the end, if these challenges can be avoided and the approach followed properly, we should find that the Oracle EPM and BI solutions are much more rapidly implementable. They do come with preceded KPIs, as you know. But really, in the end, the KPIs need to be the means to the end, not the ends to the means. And this selection approach should allow us to do that, where we get to the point where we have a limited, complete, and true set of KPIs. At this point, I'd like to thank you for your attention to this presentation, and remind you that if you require any assistance with your key performance indicator selection process, you can contact DARC at sales@darc.com or by phone at 877-476-7151. Thank you.